Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another video with ThunkTank. So here we are in video 2 talking about getting ready for the first kill event. So if you're new to the game, this is going to be a really good video to watch. A lot of good tips and tricks here that I'm bringing over from other games that have been working in this game, and I think will even work for you in later levels of this game. So in the previous video we talked about, kind of increasing your resource acquisition ability, being able to send, or at least have 45,000 T2 siege. That's assuming you have 3 dispatches. That's 15,000 T2 siege per dispatch. And the reason for that is they can pretty much perfectly harvest a level 7 tile. Now, I haven't been playing as much as I normally do. Normally when I have a bit more time, I'm actually harvesting a bit closer. Whatever's closest is going to get you the most resources faster. So because I'm away from the game a little bit more often, I'm sending my troops out further away to get more resources. So assuming that you have your T2 siege and you've got about 45,000 of them. Hopefully you're around level 13, level 12 right now. It's time to start focusing on getting ready for war. So when it comes down to war, the most important, I guess the 3 most important things are your troop tier level, your dispatch size, and their stats. So troop tier level obviously is going to be handled by your castle. So your castle is going to set the maximum level that you can upgrade all your buildings, and that means that if you want to get T8 siege like I'm trying to do right now, you're going to have to make sure that your castle is an appropriate level. So make sure you have goals for every kill event. In the beginning it's going to be easier to have goals because things are built so fast, so you'll be able to like fly through the castle levels pretty quickly as far as time's concerned. Later on you're probably going to have to go from like, well, I want to have my castle upgraded next week to like, oh yeah, level 26 will be nice one day, and instead go for some of these other goals like better stats or something like that, because these get really expensive the further you move down. Anyway, going back to tier level, I have a bit of focus going on here. Obviously not all my buildings are at the same level, so my stables, for example, are severely lacking behind my siege factory, and that's because I like to send a lot of siege in my attacks. So I personally believe that if I send more T8, if I have T8 siege, that's better than having T9, or excuse me, T7 cavalry. So I'm focusing on my siege factory. The other thing that this lets me do is, once my siege factory is online and it's 22, by focusing on that building first, that means that while I'm building the other buildings, so whether it be my infantry, which will probably be next, and then archery, and then getting my calv up there, I'll be making T8 cannons the whole time. And that's really important, because if I just decide to like, well, I'm going to upgrade my range, and then my infantry, and then my calv, and then my siege, and then keep that rotation up until they're all the same at the next troop tier level, essentially what's going to happen is that's a lot of time I will not be making my cannons, or my T8 cannons, that I could have been making my T8 cannons. So I don't see that as an effective way to play the game. If that's how you want to play, it's a lot easier. Go for it. But if you want to get ahead of the rest of the curve, I think you need to prioritize and you need to focus, and definitely focus on the bread and butter, which are your cannons, or your siege, and your infantry. Keeping in mind that some some are not really suited for attacking compared to others. For example, if I had the choice to go to T6 siege, I probably wouldn't take it. I'd probably keep my T5s and I'd focus on something else like infantry, or well, obviously not my stables, or archery. And that's because my T7 siege are primarily for attacking castles, and I do use them. I do mix a little bit in there, but they don't really, I don't know, they're not that important to me. They take the weight off the infantry when they're attacking other castles. So focus is really important. We talked a little bit about troop tier levels and how to approach that. Next up is your dispatch size. So your dispatch size is going to be primarily affected through your drill grounds, and you have some skills here that will let you send more troops. And this is really important to prioritize over stats, because think about it like this. If you could send an extra, where am I? Here we are. If you could send an extra 6,000 troops versus, having all these all this first tier level here, upgraded to 3%, so 3% across the board. I would still take the leadership. I would still take the increased dispatch size because you're sending an extra 6,000. So if we're looking at numbers, doing math here, which I suck at, so brace yourself rather. I'm also really bad at references and puns, but anyway. Then think about it like this. So we're using T8s, right? We'll take T8s as an example. So T8 Siege, let's just have a quick check here. What do? They have, boom, nice easy round number, 100 attack. So if I could send an extra 6,000 of those, and they have 100 attack, that's 600,000 hypothetical damage points that I could be doing. Now, if I were to just upgrade 3% across the board, of my dispatch size, I'd probably send about 40,000 siege in a march, and that's 3% right there. So that's about 120,000 hypothetical damage. So that's not much, and across the board, that's really not that significant early on. Now, when you're getting onto the later levels and you have higher tier levels, yeah, your stats are going to be really important. But I think initially focus on unlocking those next tier levels and increasing your dispatch size. Now, when you do start, that doesn't mean, it's not to say that you shouldn't be putting points into this. I just mean, like, as far as priorities are concerned, I view these in third. And if I had to focus on or talk about how I put points into these, well, I think about it like this. All right, which ones are doing damage? Which ones are defense? So when you're sending your troops out to attack, your primary damage dealers are your siege. So I will definitely put siege in first, max that out, followed by archery, then cavalry, then infantry, maybe even infantry before cavalry. Same, and then, thinking about defense and health, which troops need the most defense and health? Well, in my mind, would probably be most defense and health would be your infantry. And, if you're sending your demolishing drills in or your close combat siege, I'd be looking at increasing their defense. And same thing goes with their health. So I would also say that maybe your cavalry are a bit more important as far as defense and health than your siege, just because I see them as a secondary tank to the infantry. Another really important skill to have is Miracle. Now, Miracle is one of the only ways you can get wounded conversion in the game, and that is really going to save you a lot of money and time and resources later on, because if you're sending 100,000 troops and you're losing all of them, if you can save at least 10,000 or guarantee at least 10% of them survive, that's a pretty good return on investment right there. Even though you will have to pay resources for it, it won't be anywhere near as expensive as building them from scratch. So keep that in mind. Definitely want to get some wounded conversion. I wouldn't worry too much about it early on. I don't think, for the first kill event it's something to worry about, but by the second and third kill event, definitely want to have, most or, over 50% or more completed. I really want to invest in this right now, but I can't because I'm saving up for my next unlock on my cannons. So anyway, that's research and stats right there covered. I would also, say, hey, if you have a whole bunch of, if you're able to make about 2,000 troops all up in one go, so if you were to be building all 4 troop types in one go and you can kind of hit 2,000 or more, maybe look at dropping 1-year tents, because one of the problems I'm running into, and you do run into, is that the cost for building troops gets more expensive as you build more troops and as the troop tier unlocks. And you really want to be able to, as far as harvesting inside your city is concerned, be able to cover the costs or most of the costs of those troop building in-house versus going out to gather resources just to build troops. Because if that's the case, then you're not really, moving forward. You're just kind of building troops, and you want to be constantly building troops as well as upgrading. So we'll talk about farms in another video, because I do think they're important when you're in the off season, as you can put it. So when you're not doing KE, having a few farms definitely helps keep the resources flowing in and allows you to keep upgrading, on all fronts, not just buildings, but also research while producing troops, which is really important to do. And then kill events should be, for basically the next castle upgrade or the next high level troop tier unlock. But we're going to leave it there, guys. If you guys have any specific questions, hit me up, post comments, subscribe if you like the videos. I'm going to be making a third video to kind of talk about some other pointers I haven't covered in this video because there's a lot to cover when it comes to attacking. But we're going to leave it there, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time.